So now that you know how to use points or pieces of existing paths and join them together to create new ones, we can use that process to create a modern button graphic for our website homepage in our RGB document. So let's use your Command tilde or Control tilde shortcut to switch you over to your digital campaign document, assuming you still have that open. If not, just go ahead and open it from where you saved it earlier. And what we're going to do is come over onto the right hand side and just zoom in a little bit on our blank page here. This is going to be our homepage. Remember, this is our artboard we created earlier on. Now, we do want to double check that we're working in pixels because, again, we're switching back and forth between different documents. So let's just pull up the rulers, right click in there and say, yep, we are working pixels. Perfect. All right, let's turn off the rulers. So what we're going to do is create a default rectangle to start with and then use some very interesting techniques to add different corners to it. So one of them is going to be like a sliced off or snipped corner on the top left. Bottom right corner is going to be rounded. So we create a nice button graphic here, which is different to a regular rectangle. So let's go over and choose our rectangle tool to start with. Make sure that we click somewhere on the page and bring up our dialog box and key in our size of 140 pixels wide by a height of 50. All right, go ahead and click OK. Go back to your main selection tool so you don't create any more shapes. Now we can zoom in on that because we can see our default style has been applied, so we want to change that. Let's make sure we have stroke up here set to none. Let's go to our fill. Once again, because we've switched to RGB, let's make sure we're using an RGB color palette, and we'll just change this to black so it's easy to see. Now, the first thing we wanted to do, like I said, is to sort of slice off the top left-hand corner. I mean, something we could do with a pathfinder if you like. We could just use another shape to cut off the corner here. Now, we can use points for that. We're learning multiple processes here, so I'm actually going to show you both ways that I would actually achieve something like this if this was a live project. What I'm going to do is with the rectangle tool, going to click once again. Doesn't matter if we use the option key or not, we just need the dialog box. And I'm going to make this one a square. Let's go for 12 pixels square. All right. Then I'm going to go free transform, E key, shift and click on the outside and drag to the left or to the right. It doesn't matter, but we want to go to 45 degrees. Okay. Now we can go back to the main selection tool, select both items, click again on the second one so we make it a key object, and then we can align left and top. All right. Now, if we go to outline mode, we can see how that's working. The shape's corners have obviously been aligned. And this is basically the path that we wish to cut. We wish to get rid of this, and we also wish to get rid of this. And like I say, we can do that with points. I'm going to show you how the pathfinder could also be used as well. This is going to be an example. We will ultimately use points to do this. So what I'm going to do is drag and select both of those shapes and just option drag a copy up here so we can play around with it. Now remember, the pathfinder requires two shapes to overlap or combine in some way. So if we wanted to use this one to take this corner and punch out this particular triangle here, this isn't going to work. Direct selection tool will help us out of this situation. This is a bizarre workaround, but this is how you discover things in Illustrator. This is what I would do. Go back to your direct selection tool, click on one of these corner points and simply drag it outside of the shape, okay? Take the other one, do exactly the same, and what we've now done is basically swap the shape around. It's now on the outside of our object, but our original 45-degree line here is still exactly in the right position, okay? If we now went back to our selection tool, selected both, came over to Pathfinder and said minus front, we've now got the perfect snipped off corner, okay? Like I said, there's a method to my madness, but it definitely works when you need it. All right, Pathfinder in this case, not what we're going to use, so delete that and come back to our original, okay? We're going to do a couple of other processes here. Now, like I said, I wanted the lower right-hand side of this button to be rounded, okay? Now, in the tools, you do have a rounded rectangle option, but that is all four sides. What we're doing here is creating something that's very specific. So using all of these techniques, it's very achievable. Let's come down instead and choose the ellipse tool. Click anywhere in our object and let's key in a size of our circle at 40 pixels on both axes, okay? Because basically what we're going to do is use a corner radius of this, so we'll have basically a 20 pixel radius on the lower right. Now, once again, we want to align this object into this one, and we don't want this one to move because we've already got this aligned, okay? So do make sure you select the circle and the rectangle, and then once again, click on the rectangle to define that as a key object that doesn't move. Then we can come to align and say right and bottom. Okay, so that now sits exactly where it needs to. Now, in order to get rid of basically the upper three portions of this circle, we only want to keep from here downwards. All right, we don't want to use the knife tool in this instance because it creates separate shapes, as we've already seen. What we want to do here is only keep this segment, and that's really where the scissors tool would come in. Now, instead of using the tool, we can also use the control panel to do it for us. Let's go to the direct selection tool, deselect and reselect the corner point here on the right hand side, and also hold down the shift key and select the bottom one. So these are the 2 points that we wish to separate from the rest of the circle. Okay, up here in the control panel we can see the small scissors icon, and that will simply say cut this path at those selected anchor points. So go ahead and say OK. If we now deselect, main selection tool, reselect this side, we can pull this away and you'll see exactly what Illustrator's done. It's taken the 2 segments and completely separated them. So like I said, you could come over here and use the scissors tool if you want to, but I like the fact that with direct selection you can just select something and say please do the job for me. So very cool indeed. Now, back in the selection tool, we can deselect that object because we don't need it anymore. And now, essentially, we've got all of the items that are ready to make a shape. So remember, we want to go from this point up, across to this corner, down, join onto this, come all the way across and over here. All right, here's an easy way to do it. What we're going to do with the direct selection tool, we're going to get rid of this top left-hand point. Bear with me on this. Okay, and also we're going to highlight this bottom right-hand point and get rid of that as well. If we deselect, you'll see what's left are the 2 corner points. That's really all we need, okay? Likewise, for this object, what I would do is I would highlight those 2 lower points, get rid of those. Now you can get the idea. We've got the basic construction. We have points and we have paths, and we can join them all together to make one shape. So what I'm going to do is drag across the top of our line here. So I'm basically only highlighting this 1 point and our upper right-hand point here. Command J or Control J on the PC and join those together. Likewise, let's do the same down here and join the path to the curve. Likewise, again, go across the bottom and select the corner point and this one and join those. And again, we can highlight these and join them together as well. So we now end up, if we go back to our preview mode, with a finished, perfectly aligned and perfectly sized object. Okay, we started out 140 by 50. We still have 140 by 50, but we've customized the exact shape. Now, if we decided that it doesn't want to be 50 pixels high, it wants to be 40, don't forget you've got your nudge options. But when you're using nudge in this instance, you do wish to direct select all of the relevant items. So let's say we wanted to adjust the height or the width. Let's say the width. If I grabbed only this point and this point and nudge, you can see we're going to stretch out the curve because we didn't pick up the lower point, okay? So I'm going to back up there. I would make sure that we select all 3 of those points. Now when we adjust the width, we're adjusting the entire shape, but our corner radius down here is staying exactly as it was, okay? So very much worth bearing in mind. Now I'm going to set that back to 140 by 50 because we can use this shape later on when we lay out our website page. So let's just go back to actual size. Looks very nice there. Seeing as we've made a confident change here to our RGB document, we should go ahead and go to File and choose Save. Okay, so everything there is now up to date and saved.